I would like to thank the first Glenn for giving me this honor to be a part of this great organization and to share my journey. First of all, I was on the guy with some places and I saw everybody making little notes and all these kinds of things. I said, am I supposed to say something? They said, yeah, you're supposed to get up there and introduce yourself and talk about finance. I said, I don't have that much to say. But anyway, I am so pleased to be here. My journey started in New Orleans, Louisiana. I was born there. And I am the only child of my parents. I miss having siblings because when it rained, I was always petrified because I knew that I was going to be spending my time alone because you didn't go to anyone's house at that particular time during our lives. When something like that happened, you were sent to your own home. But anyway, I came here because my husband was recruited to teach at West Haven High School. He and John Daniels were the first two black teachers at West Haven High School. Right. And so that was I became involved in education also. As I look around the room, I see a lot of my former parents because I was associate director for the New Haven Child Development Program. We had 10 child care programs throughout the city of New Haven, and it was about 130 of us that were teachers in the program. That gave me a lot of experience and a lot of opportunity to meet and get friends with some of the people in this community. My other focus basically has been with my church. I found that coming here without any family and really any friends, that I joined a church that embraced me, encouraged me, and gave me a focus. And that church is Detroit United Church of Christ. I started out as an usher with the church, and I found out that I was one of the first female ushers to the church of its long history. I guess because I went to the minister, most of you remember Dr. Evans, and you know him, that I said, why aren't there any women collecting the money? And I said, we are the majority here. And his reply was, baby, let's do something about it. So I became an usher, and I was the first female usher, and also the first chairperson of the usher board at the church. And I guess it didn't stop there. I looked at the deacon board, and I said, why aren't we involved? They said, so that's the history of the UCC church, is basically that males play a great role in leadership. Went to him again, and I said, we are the majority in this congregation. Let's look at it. He said, well, baby, this church has been in existence for 180 years, and this is what we do, and this is how we do it. I said, let's look at it again. So I started studying history again with this church, and I became the first chairperson of the meeting. And with that inspiration of being involved in my church, it gave me enough strength to go out into the community and do some great and wonderful things. I serve on a number of boards in this community. I will not list them all, but they all are an integral part of our community. And it gave me an opportunity to meet and greet some wonderful people that I still have long relationships with. And it also gave me the opportunity to build on my spirituality, which makes me very strong. It keeps me focused, and it keeps me on track, and it allows me to be comfortable in this world where there's so many things going around that we have such conflict and don't really know how to handle it. But the other thing is that I, as I said before, I came from New Orleans, and I grew up in a very segregated environment. My schools were always, my elementary school, my high school was also a segregated environment, and I don't look at it as a bad thing. because it gave my teachers an opportunity to do a one-on-one with me and say, let me tell you, little black girl, the only way you are going to survive and make it in this world is to get an education. And they told us that every day. So it was ingrained in me that I would not settle for second best, that I would try to achieve and reach the highest heights that God would permit me to do. So I went on to a Grambling College, and that was in the northern part of Louisiana. And now it's called Grambling University, but now at that time it was Grambling College, and I got an education there in elementary education that has secured me to be, I thought, a good educator in dealing with young children in this community. I have a great family, and I have two wonderful sons who I think I'd like to brag on has done quite well and doing quite well in giving back to this, not to this community, but the community that they actually live in. And I'm very proud of them. I have 4 wonderful grandchildren and 2 wonderful daughter-in-laws that I think are very loving and very caring and wonderful mothers and great lives. I am not a good storyteller. I really don't have any great jokes, but I think I'm able to communicate with young people and I can offer them something as far as mentoring them. I thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Ms. Washington. Thank you, Ms. Sykes, for bestowing this great honor on me of being considered an equal to some of these fabulous women up front of the honorable table over here. And to the young ladies, welcome, and I hope you take away a pearl of wisdom that will get you through life successfully. That's why I came tonight today to hopefully share some of my life mistakes or or lessons that I've learned. I can't say I'm a genius, but I've learned a few things in my 60-plus years. I am Latina, which is a phrase that I invented for myself. My parents came here from Puerto Rico in the 1940s. I am the last of 8 children, and 6 of them are girls. So you know what it's like when you wash a sweater by hand at night and you go to put it on the next morning and your older sister's wearing it. Or another shirt, you know. So some of the ladies up here know what I'm talking about. There were no washing machines in those when I was growing up. We got one like in the 70s. My reason, I guess, for being chosen here is because I guess Ms. Sykes and others feel that I have something to offer to you. I've been in the Maiden since 1989 and working with 2 preteen children, and they went through the school system here from middle school on to high school and finished. I'm very proud of the education they got here and how successful they've been in life. I came in '89 because I was going to finish my college education at Yale. They had a program where you could be a non-traditional student and finish your BA here. I had graduated from LaGuardia Community College in Long Island City, and I did so well that a teacher encouraged me to apply to many of the Ivy League schools. I had gone to Vassar for a summer program, and everybody was like, oh, wonderful, apply here, so I did. And lo and behold, Yale accepted me, and so far, I graduated in 1991, and shortly after I graduated there, there weren't any jobs in the early 1990s. There were job freezes everywhere. And I hadn't really thought through I wanted to go back to New York. I was going to be here only for 2 years. That's it. I'm coming, I'm leaving, I'm going back to New York and go to graduate school there. But what happened was my son was doing very well at Wilbur Cross, and my daughter as well. I didn't want to move them around again because I had already moved them here, and then I figured, you know what, I'm going to stay put till they finish school. So I started working at Yale, at a library, which I've been now, been at the library for over 20 years. I started in '92, shortly after I graduated. So there's much to be said for, you know, getting a Yale degree, but, you know, not going further. but it's been a good life working at a library because luckily we have good jobs there at Yale, and I've been very active in my union, so I've been able to fight for jobs. So I feel that I've contributed to the quality of life in New Haven as a whole because, as they say, a rising tide lifts all ships.
All right.
So when Yale is paying more, the surrounding areas pay more also. They want to get workers to compete with Yale, they have to pay more to keep their employees or to get employees also. And some of you here are some of my picket sisters, so you know what I'm talking about. How did I wind up going back to school in '89? The thing is this, I had gotten married before I finished my college degree. I graduated high school in 1969, and I didn't trust in myself or I didn't take it seriously. I would like work a semester, go back to college. I was like wishy-washy. What do I want to be? Do I want to be a teacher? Do I want to be an executive secretary? And of course, all your aunts and uncles were saying, you should be a secretary. You should be this and that. And I didn't know for myself. So I ended up getting married, having 2 children. The marriage didn't last. So when you have 2 children, you say that's when you really get serious. You say, no, I can't be wishy-washy anymore. I got to show these kids that education is important. Like our mother told me, she never went to school, but that was her dream for us. She was one of the first of 13 children, and as the first one, she had to stay home and help with the other kids. So she knew what she always tried to instill in us, that education was the way to become successful. So when I found myself alone with 2 children, I went back to school to LaGuardia nearby and ended up at Yale. So I was just basically trying to be a good role model for my kids, when I could have been a role model for myself all along had I paid attention to myself and learned to be me. If you take away anything from me right now as young women in this room, it's to find yourself first. Don't try and let a man complete you. Don't let a boyfriend tell you what to do. Worry about you first, because you can't go into a marriage and bring to the marriage everything that you need to bring into it to make that marriage successful until you know who you are. You bring a whole person to the marriage, not a person who's wishy-washy and still doesn't know if she wants to be a painter or a nurse or a secretary. It's just, not a good thing to do. So that's a little bit of my life. That's what I'm doing now, what got me to here today. But I should also say that my mother, although she didn't go to school, she had the door open all the time.
Yeah.
She's a real. Now, you people in South Carolina, North Carolina, you know everybody who knows how to mix this herb with that tea, and this plant, with this other thing. That was my mom. So I'm an older woman now for over 10 years. In 2001, right? I followed Esther Armand in Ward 7. And I've always been helping out in the community. Carolina knows I used to go to management team meetings, Carolina and her group put up the Shaw's Supermarket. Even though you don't bring a lot to the table, you bring something. And all that together make a big difference in any town. So this here's the year. Thank you.
I can actually relate to the emotion around your mother, because most times your mother has a strong impact on you. And you're going to hear me talk about my mother too, because she was a lady way before her time. She was born in 1920, and she was a role model, not only for her girls and her family, but for the community. So I'm going to tell a little bit about my story, and I'll tell you a little bit about me. Most people call me Patty. My family name is Patsy. And I'm from Tabor City, a small town in North Carolina, Tabor City, North Carolina. I graduated from an all-white high school at the time, so it was the era of segregation. And I think that gave us strength. I didn't see it as a negative, because someone spoke to me about the teachers. And let me tell you, those teachers were committed to their students. They understood what the struggle was about. I know that our kids today don't understand that struggle, but that struggle is still here. And at a very young age, with my parents, and they were very strong parents. I'm from a family of 12. I am number 5. There were 5 girls and 7 boys. The boys beat us out. But at a very young age, we were encouraged that education was really the key. My mom, she had to stay away from her family and walk through woods, and she told us the story about how, she'd be walking to school and, it was so cold that she'd have ice on her eyebrows. And, she'd see her parents every now and then because they would bring the food to her. They canned, and so they would bring the food to her because she had to stay away from home in order to get education. She finished the 9th grade though, and to me, that was like graduating high school for that day. And she lived to be 89. She died in 2009. But even when she came up here for her last 4 years, and we were having a meeting in the kitchen, and she was sitting there. And we had to do Robert's rules, and we had to do motions. And so we're having this discussion, and we're going on. And my mom said, I haven't heard a motion yet. Because she was the secretary in the church for a very long time. And she understood that. And she taught all her life. I used to go with her to teach people how to cut out patterns at school. She used to carry people, she was part of the Democratic Association, and she would take people and go pick them up to vote. She would help people fill out paperwork for various things. So our home, even though she had 12 children, she was an entrepreneur. She sold Lucky Heart. And she would be riding around and delivering her products with us in the back, she didn't let anything stop her. So that was the type of role model that I grew up with. And so she encouraged us around education to make sure education was the key. And she would do anything. She would get that money. She would call the family and say, this one needs this one needs that, because she really understood the importance of education, and she impressed that in us. And of course, we are impressing that in our children. So of our 12 children, not everybody got the 4-year degree, but everybody went on to some kind of further education after all of us graduated high school. But all of us to get either a technical type of degree or to get, the bachelor's or the master's. I was a non-traditional child, and I was a non-traditional student. I got accepted into North Carolina A&T State University. But I didn't want to go there. I had 2 sisters there already. And I didn't want to go there because at the time when you went to A&T, it was food and nutritional services. And that was not my interest. I was not interested in doing that kind of job. I was more of a business person. I had a business bent to me. And so I didn't go. And I stayed out, and I worked for a year in a factory. And then I went on to school for a certificate in programming. That was where my interest was. I was a techie. Back then, I graduated in 1966, and I was more interested in the techie and the business stuff. And so I went to Durham Business School, got a certificate, and during that time, you know, it was when there was a migration from the south to the north to try and get jobs. There was a lot of talk at that time about affirmative action. And so I call myself an affirmative action baby because I came up here in the 60s looking for a job in programming, like someone else said. I didn't have any experience to get the job. So I got an interview at Yale University for a secretarial job. And I flunked the test. I flunked the typing test. It was terrible. But there must have been something about me in that interview because I got hired. I did get hired. And I got hired in an office where there were older people, much older people. And I was sort of like the youngster in the office. And these ladies and my boss, who was Polish, really took care of me. And they mentored me, and they covered over me, and they just molded me probably somewhat also. And, you know, at that time, I worked in that job for 2 or 3 years, and then I met John Daniels, who at the time was the director of affirmative action at the university, had some conversations with him, and he encouraged me because I said, well, I think I want to be an interviewer, a personnel interviewer. And so he encouraged me to go back to school. I went back to school in the evening. I worked full-time during the day. And I got my associate's degree first with honors. And then I went on and I got my bachelor's degree. I continued to work full-time and continued to go to school in the evening. And that was at the University of New Haven. And I went on and got my master's degree. I continued and continued and continued. And I got my master's degree from the University of New Haven, and I got it in industrial relations. I did become an interviewer at Yale University in the medical school. I realized that dream, and that's one of the things that I want to emphasize to my folks is it's really important to have a goal. It's important to have a goal. A goal is going to direct you. It will focus you. But if you don't have a goal and you're just kind of, you know, wishy-washy out there, then you don't know where you're going. You know, you might go here or you might go there, but is that where you want to go? So establish the goal first, and then, you know, strive to meet that goal. You are going to run into some obstacles. You're going to run into some barriers, but at least you know what you want to accomplish. You know where you want to go. And that was one of the things that I wanted to point out today. I did make a few notes. I know that we're all telling our stories, and I think that stories are very, very powerful, and I think they're very important to be told, our stories. The other thing that I wanted, and like I said, I did put some little notes down. So, because these are things that have influenced my life, okay? And, you know, I have a passion for people. I have a passion for giving back in the community, for helping. And I also, at the age of 15, I went to the March on Washington. It was my first bus trip away from home. All right. But my parents allowed me to go. And so, you know, we just had the 50th celebration of that march. I took my 12-year-old friend. Amen. All right. I think it's important, and for, you know, our children to understand, you know, what it was about and what it continues to be about. And so, I want to just leave with you is to put God first in your life.
Amen.
Put him first. And build a relationship with him. Because you're gonna find those days when you're very alone. Even though you have family, and family is very, very important. I can't family is very important, especially your mom and your dad. You can always honor them, no matter what. But God is that person that you need to hang on to, talk to all the time. And he's an integral part of me. I talk to him all the time. But make sure that because you will find that you are getting opportunities, that you are in places that you never dreamed you would be in. How did I get here? And it's all in him. It's all in him. And be a blessing to somebody. Be a blessing. It doesn't require